Hello everyone and welcome to our second Artsmark Celebration Week event. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Helen and Claire, who are from Seven Hills School in Sheffield. Seven Hills School was recently awarded Artsmark Gold, which is an absolutely brilliant achievement. So we've invited Claire and Helen along this afternoon after a very busy day at school. So we're really grateful to them for sparing their time to talk to us about what kind of impact they felt Artsmark had on their school community, and a little bit as well about their goals and aspirations for the future. So welcome Claire and Helen, it's lovely to have you both. I wondered maybe if we could start off maybe with telling us a little bit, first of all, about your setting, if that's okay.
So Seven Hills is it's a secondary special school for students with severe learning difficulties and complex needs. It's situated in the heart of Sheffield and has approximately 210 students on roll, year 7 to year 14. Some of the students in our post-16 provision are educated off-site in a shared post-16 provision with Talbot School. 9% are EAL students and 53% have free school meals. And like a lot of the special needs schools in Sheffield, we are really oversubscribed. So, you know, it's a busy school. There's a lot going on.
Oh, thank you for that, Claire. And also, I should also mention, so Claire is an art specialist at Seven Hills and Helen is a music specialist. And obviously as a school, I wanted to talk to you about the profile of arts within your school. So for many of our Artsmark schools, they're asked to really review and look at where the arts sits within their school development plan, within their mission, their values, their ethos. Obviously, you know, huge congratulations that you've been recently awarded Artsmark Gold. It's a fantastic achievement, which tells us that the role of arts within your school, you know, it has got a high profile. Would you like to tell us, can you tell us a little bit more about that and how the arts fits into your school ethos and mission and values?
Yeah, so all the students have 20% of arts on their timetable. Some of that is a rotation, some have like weekly sessions. Some of the developmental classes will have more sessions like that are consistent with the same teachers so that they get to know us quite well. Others have it on a rotation. Helen does a lot of the arts award with students. And I kind of like, I've written a little bit about when I first came to Seven Hills, so it's like nearly 10 years ago now. And I quickly became aware of the difficulties facing students in being able to express themselves creatively and being able to express their imagination. And that's kind of where my sort of journey began, and kind of Helen's as well, really, with that wanting to, how can we adapt and change our arts provision to encourage and nurture their creativity and encourage their imaginative skills. And that's kind of what was basically the main sort of journey through Artsmark as well, is kind of keeping to that core that we want to be able to give students an opportunity to express themselves creatively and imaginatively. And I know for a lot of people that work in special schools, they'll understand that, because it's quite difficult for them to express themselves communicatively, and then being able to do it on a sort of a much deeper level was, you know, was like, that was my kind of mission, really. And other people on our creative team wanted to sort of give our students their creative voice. So I kind of began researching ways of encouraging independence for myself in the visual arts, and I started to adopt my lessons and topics accordingly. And a part of this was encourage support staff as well, that it was really important that I wanted them to be there sort of working alongside the students, rather than sort of like, right, this is what we're going to make today, and this is this, and you're going to sort of aid the students and help them in making this what we've decided to make today. So what was important was that students either created their final piece was their own work, or the process of the journey that they went to, that was their own work, with no input from anybody else.
I was going to say that was what I found with music when I arrived. It was very much product driven, what the students were going to create. The journey wasn't really looked at. So when I was trying to get students to be creative and spontaneous, they just sort of sit at you and go, oh, somebody tell me what to do. And it was like, I think that both screamed at us, that's not the arts. It should be about being able to express yourself individually. So that's, for me, where I started looking at changing music. So it was more about the process and giving students that freedom to actually explore the instruments, explore the music, and not be driven by, well, we need a performance by X and Z. It was so, and that really allowed us to be able to focus on, particularly like our developmental students, giving them the time that they so needed.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't about the end result. No. Even though we do celebrate the end result,
yes,
it wasn't about an end result. It was about opportunities and allowing them space and time, and allowing them to, whatever they wanted to create, that was their piece of artwork or that piece of music or that dance or drama. It didn't have preconceived ideas, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And I think, you know, it's really interesting what you say, because I think it's not until many schools start Artsmark where they actually realize, oh, right, the arts isn't always about, you know, maybe a showcase or a celebration or, you know, a performance. It's actually, you know, about the process and the journey, you know, and about developing lots of different, and we're going to talk about that later, like different kinds of skills and development for the pupils along the way, in which creativity actually brings out. So that emphasis on the personal development, I think many schools are quite maybe not prepared for, and they think, oh, we hadn't realized that creativity in the arts can actually benefit our pupils in so many other ways through that journey, through that process, through that discovery.
I think, and we found a lot of the TAs were quite nervous about that, sort of having that freedom and giving the students that freedom, because they'd worked in that way for so long. Suddenly we're going, let's do it this way. They're like, oh.
Yeah, because some lessons nothing really got done at first. It took time. It took time for students to kind of build their confidence. But now you can see the ones that have done it for a few years. So just when I'm sort of talking about things like using transient art, using loose parts, process art, all of these kind of things, but ones by sort of like doing, you know, those sort of techniques, but with different topics and different resources and different materials. They're like, oh, this is familiar to me now, and I'm a lot more confident. And during our Artsmark journey, this has become embedded across the curriculum. And much of our work, our final part of the Artsmark journey, was to kind of make sort of cross-curricular links and embed these in other lessons. Sort of learning through play, maths and English lessons, and our English lead has done a lot of work on how transient art can be used in English lessons, like introducing stories and students using them for storytelling and things like that. And we've done a lot of work as well. I can talk about that later, about staff workshops and helping, like creating shopping lists of what they can use for loose parts and things like that.
That's brilliant, Claire. Like, it really sounds like the Artsmark journey had, in many ways, and your goals and ambitions, a long-term impact. Like, you know, and so tell us a little bit more about, if you don't mind, Helen and Claire, those Artsmark goals and ambitions that you set out to achieve, because it really does sound like they've had a long-term impact, and that many of the techniques have been, and the knowledge has been embedded across the school. So tell us a little bit more about those. I think this is an area some schools find a little bit challenging to kind of specify those goals, to have the impact over, I mean, 2 years isn't really that long a time, so you've achieved an awful lot. So we did. We started it.
Sorry, we started it before COVID, so we were doing it for about 3 years, I think. And a lot of So one of the things was to rewrite the art curriculum, to rewrite targets. We use a system called Educator. So that was actually perfect because I spent quite a lot of lockdown writing, going from the national curriculum and kind of then building it out and doing a lot of small steps in sort of like from, you know, year 1 up to year 6, and then obviously like P scales P4 to P9 on the Educator. So being able to write the targets meant that I could then sort of, it all became quite tight, because then it was, you know, this is what we want to do. The lessons want to do transient art, and we've got targets that meet that as well, you know, and kind of going on what's expected in the national curriculum. Another big one was well-being. So that's one of our school values, is well-being. We wanted to, one of the things like what Helen has said about working with the TAs, is we wanted them to understand how much you can get from being within the arts. And if we thought, if they understood how good this is for your well-being, then they would be able to support students in encouraging just the process of creating music. And
I think that's what's helped us really drive it forward, is the fact showing the TAs and getting the TAs on board. That's when it suddenly just went. Yeah, it really drove it forward.
So we did like well-being evenings where we did painting and singing, yoga and different things like that, so that they got that, yeah, this is actually really relaxing. Another goal was setting up social media pages. So we set up an Instagram and
Twitter,
yeah.
And we've got a page on the school, it's not social media, but we've got a page on the school website for the arts as well, to share with the community what we're doing.
Yeah, we one of our big goals was, because obviously a lot of our most of our students come by school buses, and so we don't often see the parents. So a big goal was to try and involve parents and carers. That was obviously not really doable because of COVID. So we sort of use the social media pages. We set up with Matt Laurie and other special schools. We set up this website, Special Schools Network, and we did like an exhibition space on there that we could share work with that from other special schools as well. So we could share that with parents, so they could see what they're doing, and we can celebrate on social media as well. So parents had other ways of seeing what their children were doing in school. And the student voice as well, so having like a student arts council that sort of voted on things like the Bear of Sheffield and how they wanted to decorate our bear for the Sheffield Children's Hospital charity. Did you want to say anything about that?
I was going to say another big thing was our whole school event and getting live musicians into school, because the students benefit so much from that. The inspiration they get. I was going to say, and it's hard for us to get musicians or performers in that can cater for all of our students' needs. But by having it as one of our goals, we were given the luxury of being able to explore performers and musicians that could provide the opportunities that were really meaningful for our students.
I think that's all absolutely fantastic to hear. And I think, you know, where it can be challenging for some schools when they set the goals and ambitions is to, you know, the Artsmark journey is a whole school journey, and it can be really difficult to bring the whole school, like all the staff, and Helen, what you've just described, links with the parents, to see the relevance of the Artsmark journey, to see, you know, why we're working towards these goals and ambitions, how they feed into the school development plan, how they feed into bigger aspirations. And I just loved hearing about everything you've said, because, you know, the fact that you did work so hard to communicate with everybody about what you were doing, why it was important, and that everyone felt a sense of belonging in that journey. meant that everyone was invested in it. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think a lot of schools that are watching this will really value hearing about that, because that is one area that can be tricky and it means some schools can go off track as well, because they don't have that kind of support to see the goals and ambitions through. So that's brilliant. Brilliant to hear.
I think it helps being specialist teachers as well, because you work with so many different classes. So I know that's not always doable for schools, but when we were in different classes, we could sort of say, right, I said about the Reggio Emilia approach. So I could kind of explain. So I was there sort of explaining to staff and teachers and TAs, this is why we're doing this. We want to try this approach. We want to give students the chance to explore and problem solve. And then we've not been able to do it recently because of COVID, but a lot of what we then sort of work on is then sort of like going towards an end festival. So we'd sometimes make festival decorations and classes would go about doing that, but then they'd also do some music in it. We'd have lots of artists that would come. So we'd kind of like try and bring it all together in a festival at the end.
That's
of the year.
Fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. And as you say, it's not just product driven. It was that festival was a culmination of a really amazing journey that everyone was part of. So that's brilliant. You've talked, we're going to come back to Reggio Emilia approach, if that's okay, just to talk about that a little bit further. But before that, so really, you'd mentioned earlier the impact of Artsmark on your pupils, particularly developing that sense of agency, of independent thinking, of developing those leadership and independence skills as well. Is there and on their well-being, is there anything else that came out of your Artsmark journey that you felt had a really profound impact on the pupils?
Yeah, God. It was quite difficult, really, in a lot of ways to sort of, I think, right, how can we measure the impact? I think that was quite a challenge. How can we measure this impact? How can we see? But then you sort of have to take a step back, and I think that the fact that one of the reasons why I started doing these the lessons the way that I did, with like a sort of a carousel of different activities, of transient art, of using loose parts, of maybe having like, a Play-Doh table where they could do this, and maybe having like a messy table, was all because I wanted students to be able to work independently. I didn't just want to kind of like get 4 students and they do this piece of artwork, and then the other students go and do some choice activities or something, sort of like a whole, holding activities. I wanted the students to try to be engaged where possible for the whole of the lesson, and then they could go and choose and rotate round and try lots of different things, all still on the same activity. So when I kind of like stepped back and thought about the impact, it was actually just the lessons just had a massive impact, because it went from being sort of a little bit like, right, come on, let's get these students now and let's make this little thing with a small group. It went from that to actually thinking, in a year we've got all of the students pretty much every lesson working for the whole lesson on something that they are choosing to do themselves, that they are independently going to and independently creating their work. And we're talking about a whole range of abilities here, a whole range of and obviously we'd differentiate so that it was suitable for their ability. But sometimes they would only be able to keep their attention for 5 to 10 minutes. And we're thinking, actually, there is a big impact here, because they are being able to work for an hour.
And I think it's not just in arts. You see it across other subjects, because again, a lot of subjects before we started our journey, it was like Claire said, 10 minutes, then choosing time. But now they're pinching the ideas from the Artsmark journey, and you're seeing students having less and less choosing time because they're actively engaged with different activities set up in their classrooms.
And they're choosing to do these activities. it's their decision to do that.
Yeah, and they're not asking for the computer or anything else. They are genuinely excited about doing the activities,
and they're really invested in it and proud of it, because it's their choice, it's their work. And again, like we talked earlier about, Artsmark helps schools to look at developing a sense of belonging and ownership with the pupils, and this is just such a brilliant example of that, where when pupils feel that sense of belonging, they're much more invested in what's happening. So and that's brilliant. I
was going to say, and the fact that they'll come and tell you about it, even if it's got nothing was in your lesson, but they'll come like running down the corridor at you to go, Helen, I've done this.
Oh, that's amazing.
And also, like I said earlier, that it took a while to get them to get students to understand how transient art worked, but then that's now transferable skills, so they know I pick this and I make this and I arrange it how I want to. And so using that same sort of technique with different materials showed again the impact, because that they didn't need explaining or demonstrating, they could just be left with the resources and and make it work for them. And I think as well, like I'd like a lot of the impact, when we're measuring impact, to write our final thing for the Arts Council, was we'd like listen to students talking, and we'd ask TAs to listen to students talking, and just things like, a student that had really difficulty with the fine motor skills, she's got a degenerative condition, would be like, I like art now. And that's quite a profound thing to say, because I feel that before she maybe just felt that she didn't have the strength in her fingers to be able to, do certain art activities. So just little things like that we wrote in our final statement to the Arts Council, just these just little nuggets that we'd heard. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say something similar, because we did Shakespeare Festival, and you had some of the shyest students come, and you think, but from working with them, and then they get on stage, and then afterwards they come up and go, I really like that, can we do it again? And you're just blown away. I think sometimes we forget the smallest thing can have the biggest impact on our students.
But I mean, we use lots of different measures. We did this sort of the listening to students and writing things down and observing and seeing the changes in the lessons, because that was quite an easy thing for Helen and myself to do, and other teachers and TAs to do as well. But we also did like gathering data. So we asked students from the Northern Ballet and the Youth Orchestra.
Northern Ballet and Sheffield Youth Orchestra were doing a concert in Sheffield. And they came in to do, it was based on 7 Deadly Sins, and they came in to do a workshop based on the different movements of the piece, and getting the students to think about words that go with them, the movements they could do, and that really impacted their students speaking and listening. And we were able to track the data through the English lead.
They're just a lot more confident in speaking to the class and speaking, taking part in just even things like just like role plays and things like that. They just showed a lot more confidence. And we asked them as well, but we did like student surveys of, would you like to do this thing again? And did it make you think differently about ballet and different things like that? So we did use lots of different ways of measuring data, and as well. Again, the cross-curricular links with things like a lot of the wellbeing things that we did. So the community projects where we worked with Sheffield Age Concern, and we did like a pen pal scheme during COVID, and it gave us opportunities to speak to the students about the challenges that people face. And also when we did the Bear of Sheffield, it gave us opportunities to speak. And it was really interesting to hear a lot of the students talking very maturely about loneliness and illness and isolation, and we just felt like it gave them a sense of purpose to do something to help and have that sort of shared empathy and understanding, and talk about, you know, their own grandparents and difficulties during lockdown and things like that. So yeah, we had some quotes as well from students. I'm just trying to see if I can find some of them.
I think one of the best ones was, again, it was after the performing. They were like, the whole world's my stage now. And it's quite a student, and you're like, yeah, and
incredible.
Love being saying that they love being on stage in front of the audience, and saying
that's incredible impact, isn't it? And then, you know, for other students as well to watch those, you know, on stage as well, and to celebrate what they're doing automatically impacts on those pupils as well, doesn't it? And they, you know, so they're learning from each other and celebrating each other's work. I think that's brilliant.
I was going to say, and the amount of students that you get once they've watched someone else do it, they're like, oh, I'll do that. And it's such a snowball effect.
And things like putting recordings of singing and drama on the website. This is something that we did from COVID, and also having the Arts Network exhibition page, so that they could see their work, because it's like, you know, students in secondary school love anything that's on, you know, that they can search up on the internet. They just love that kind of thing, and being able to watch something on an iPad or watch something on a screen, it has a massive impact on them. And just their thought of being able to like Google, you know, and then search this up and see their work or see themselves performing, that was just like, you know, they just blew their minds.
And the fact that they could go and show it to everybody at home.
Of course.
This is me.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. I guess that's one of the things that COVID kind of encouraged all of us to do, is to kind of think a bit more digitally, which, you know, thank goodness we can see each other face to face now, but it did give us a lot more new technical skills, which, as you say, Helen, has enabled your pupils to share and celebrate that work beyond the setting with lots of other people in their family. And I think that's brilliant. It gives it a real sense of longevity as well, doesn't it? Whereas sometimes performance ends. But yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I wondered as well if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about the Reggio Emilia approach, because I know that was very integral to your Artsmark journey and to your school as well. So for anyone kind of watching or listening, would you just tell us a little bit about what that approach is essentially, and then how you used it within your setting?
So Reggio Emilia is a town in Italy. At first I thought it was a person. And the philosophy values the child as central to their own learning. This is kind of quoting from their website. So it's not simply an empty vessel waiting to be filled with knowledge. Children are able to pursue their own interests and revisit and build upon ideas at their own pace. Learning is driven by the child, who takes an active role in co-constructing their own knowledge and gives the child control over the direction of the curriculum. It encourages self-expression, communication, teamwork, thinking and problem solving in the child. And it was started because after the Second World War, and they just kind of thought, you know, we need to think differently about how we are educating our students and our children. And they didn't just want the children to be kind of like fed and told, and they wanted it to be questioned and explored and challenged. So that was kind of our sort of starting point, that we don't want to just tell the students, this is what we're going to make, this is what we're going to do. We wanted to sort of offer something and then see where it went.
And when you talked earlier as well, Claire and Helen, about the sense of independence and freedom that your students developed, you know, coming up with their own ideas, choosing that sense of choice, I guess that was very much influenced by this approach as well. So it's had a really profound impact on the schools. That's brilliant to hear.
Just wanted their work to be genuine, to be, you know, to be sort of genuine to these students, that this is their work, and this is what they've chosen to do, and this is their imagination and creativity.
And a lot of the parents are a lot more appreciative of actually seeing the true reflection of the children's work. And they don't want the, like, oh, some of this helped you do that.
Yeah, I think parents and carers know when it's
yeah. We've had really, like, the parent, everyone's been really positive about seeing the genuine article.
Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely brilliant. And thinking about staff then, and you know, thinking about the long-term impact of Artsmark on staff and teaching and knowledge and skills within this school. So what kind of CPD did staff undertake as part of Artsmark that you thought, have you any specific examples of CPD that you thought actually this CPD was really effective, that maybe you could share with other schools that worked really well for you?
I think it was about sort of, I'll talk about the arts side, and then I don't know if I'll talk about the music, CPD. But I think what was really important for myself was that creating a CPD that would be really, that was completely vital to supporting students in the actual lesson. So like sort of stripping everything back and just saying, right, let's just get all these things and let's do some making and let's be in the student's shoes, so you kind of get what this is all about. So we just did like transient art workshops and loose part workshops, and also it's kind of like tried to sort of make it really simple. So it's like you just pine cones and shells and curtain rings, you know, things that is quite easy. So it was fine in art lessons to do it, but to try and sort of spread that out further or more across the school, I thought it's really important that we run workshops that are just really sort of straight to the point about what in the visual arts I wanted to achieve.
And go on, Helen.
Sorry.
No, go on, Helen.
No, I was gonna say, in music we did something similar, but as split it, we have three strands. We have a developmental, a semi-formal, and a formal. And similar to Claire, it was getting the TAs into the students' shoes, getting them to do a session as the students and giving that opportunity to explore. Because often the TAs look to you to go, what are we doing? And it's have the confidence, have the freedom to explore with them. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's
I think another thing that was successful as well is with Matt Laurie with Create Sheffield, we set up a creative leads. So we asked for somebody to come from each special school, and we did it over Zoom first. We did lots of things over Zoom, and it was quite difficult to kind of get a bit of momentum going. I mean, we sort of talk now quite positively, but a lot of these projects were quite hard work to get going. So I don't want anybody to think that it's easy. You know, and we feel people's struggles. It is difficult, and I completely sympathise with that. So one of the things that we did manage to get going was the workshops. So a different school would run a different workshop, and then staff would go to those workshops. So they were open to the creative leads from the schools that were part of the network, and then other staff could go as well if they wanted to. So we ran a spray paint workshop. Bents Green ran a sensory circuits in nature workshop with Emily Whiteley, and the Rowan ran a junk modelling one. And then what the idea was then we'd like create some artwork or some music or drama or whatever to then go on the websites. And also through these kind of like different workshops and Zoom calls and things like that, I got to know like a few artists. So Beatrice Neal Knowles, she came into school, and that was amazing CPD because she worked with teachers, because we find a lot of our developmental classes it's difficult to do some sort of really hands-on work with them. So she sort of you know, to do some amazing work with these classes, and to be able to see a new person coming in and to be able to see how she sets, because she works in the community with lots of students and with PMLD students. So, you know, being able to see what she set up and how she did it and how she approached it was just amazing for the teachers and everybody involved.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. And I think as well, what you're getting across there too is the relevance to the teachers was communicated. And I think some schools have said, oh, we find it hard to get everyone on board with CPD, you know, because they don't understand. Other teachers, particularly if they're not art specialists, don't always understand why they're being asked to take part in something or how it can impact on their practice. So the fact that that was so effectively communicated as well within the school, and that the TAs as well were supported through that process, it sounds like that was really important.
Yeah, it took a long time.
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, moments you think you're banging your head against a brick wall.
Yeah, it's not easy. But now you have, after that journey, the impact of that is that you have a really strong legacy within the school of that practice, and that's absolutely brilliant. And then just lastly, you've talked already so eloquently, and it's been so inspiring to hear about your links with your parents and families and how they've been able to share and celebrate in this with you. That's been brilliant. In terms of, you've achieved so much, and I just wondered, in terms of the future, are there any kind of new goals or aspirations that you're going to either build on from your Artsmark journey, or any new goals that you're going to work towards?
I think because COVID did set us back, is getting more live performances back into schools, and again getting the musicians to work with the staff, because we've got a lot of new staff. So again, it's just keeping recapping skills, giving them new skills, new approaches to work with, getting our parents back into school finally.
Yeah, we're doing a Christmas show.
Yeah, it's our first one.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and I think because it's new for us, being split out over, I think we're over 3 sites at the minute.
Right.
So that's something really important for us, to make sure that we feel we're, as a whole, we're not our post-16 students don't feel they're out on a limb, that they still feel that they're part of our family, and we're stronger for it.
So is your Christmas production going to involve all 3?
Everyone.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And all the families and carers, they'll all be, everyone will be invited to watch it in person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's going to be some occasion, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think really, and I'm sure lots of other special schools find this as well, that each year we just need to be reflective and constantly adapting and changing, because our student cohort just changes so much each year. I mean, we have a lot of students now that are very sensory, working at kind of P2 levels, but are very physically active and able. So this is kind of a new sort of challenge for us to kind of engage these students. And how can we, how can we meet their needs?
It's giving the staff confidence to work with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've spoken really well too about arts partners, and you've given really good specific examples about that's really helped CPD particularly. And I think other schools think about upskilling teachers, in-person CPD, and you talked about observing creative practitioners and then trying something out for the staff to try and then get feedback, and that kind of process in terms of moving forward and working with arts partners in person sounds brilliant as well, and could be really effective.
We'll carry on with a lot of the things that we've sort of set up. We'll carry on. How can we develop the online gallery further? How can we try and get sort of a bit more other teachers involved in the Creative Schools Network, to sort of try and it's at first, when you first start something, it's got to kind of get a bit of momentum going, and we've kind of got it going, and then you want it to become like a habit.
Yes.
So it's like, you know, and I think that's where we need to be now. We need to try to get these things that we've started to become habit. Yeah.
So something a lot of schools say is, you know, we feel, you know, if they're not part of a network or a group, it can feel quite isolating. Especially if you're an arts lead in a school and you're kind of working on your own a lot, or you know, you don't have other skills. So is there, with this Creative Schools Network, just to let everyone know, is it exclusively for schools in Sheffield for settings, or you know, can anyone join from, or where can they find out more information about it? Do you know?
I mean, I guess because we do a lot, I mean, we haven't really done anything, and I haven't really heard much from them this academic year, so it's possibly something to sort of chase up and look into. And we did it with Create Sheffield, which I know you work with, and Sophie Hunter. So she came to an exhibition that I did in school, an art exhibition, and I said to her, I feel a bit like an island, and I feel like there's nobody. I felt very isolated, not in a dramatic sense, but just in sort of like, I feel like I want to make some connections, and I feel like I want to sort of, you know, support each other and sort of, you know, and have a bit of like a discussion with people about how they approach things. So Sophie said she put us in touch with Matt Laurie, who works for Create Sheffield, and then he got it kind of going, and then COVID hit, because this was January 2020 that I had this conversation with Sophie. So then we did a lot of it over Zoom. So I'd say possibly try and get in touch with the bridge organisations in their city and see if they will, because they just put us in touch with other schools. Others, and we said we want it to be special schools, because we want it to be, we want to be able to understand where each other was coming from.
Absolutely.
I mean, to be honest though, through this journey, I've been part of a lot of different groups, some with primary schools, some with artists that are working in the city, you know, some with people that are exclusively doing Artsmark. So I do think that as soon as you kind of like put the feelers out, there are quite a lot of groups out there.
Yes, absolutely. And if there are any schools watching this, particularly if you're a special school and you'd like to connect with other settings that may that you'd like to talk to, do get in touch with me, because I've got, you know, information about all the Artsmark schools across the region, and I can help put you in touch with people. And like Claire says, you know, you might be thinking, oh, I'd like to start something up, or I'd like to get something going, and we've heard how that can work so successfully today. So do get in touch as well with me, and I'm sure if you want any advice at all, I'm sure Claire and Helen might be happy to just, you know, give you a little bit of a you know, support, or a little chat about what they did.
And to be honest, we'd absolutely love it if people did want to give us some work to go on our exhibition space, online exhibition space. It'd be absolutely amazing to include. If anybody is interested in that, then that would be great. To music or dance or videos or whatever.
Brilliant. So if anyone's as well if wants to follow up with that offer from Claire and Helen for their exhibition space, again, let me know and I can put you in touch with Claire and Helen. That's fantastic. Well, that comes to the end of our In Conversation With. Thank you so much, Claire and Helen, for joining us. What an inspiring story, and what fantastic goals and aspirations for the future as well. It's been brilliant to hear about all of that. I'm sure everyone watching has gathered has felt fully inspired and gathered lots and lots of information that they can reflect on as well and move forward with. Don't forget, we're also running a series of In Conversation events this week, right through until Friday. So we have a list on our website of different schools we'll be speaking to, so do make sure that you check those out. If you've got any Artsmark questions or would like some support, do contact me directly and I'll do my best to help you. So for now, thank you very much, Claire and Helen from Seven Hills Schools in Sheffield. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.